So the gang is back together. Probably, and I've heard this from other people, the best panel ever at an expo. There was standing room only for the three luminaries that are on the screen now, and I'm very pleased that it wasn't just a one-off gig. Everyone's come back together, and we're going to try and recreate the magic. No pressure, but Sandrea, Dan, and James, thanks very much for coming back on, and we are going to try and recreate those magical moments at the Contact Centre Expo. Now we started with the title was the future of the contact centre, and when we think about the challenges as we go into next year, Sandrea, what for you are the biggest challenges that our industry is facing?
So the biggest challenge that I'm facing, and I know the majority of the industry is facing, is trying to find the right caliber of people. In a climate where there are lots of jobs, I think the competition's quite strong to find people who have the right tone of voice, are engaged, that you can build real brand champions in your agents and frontline teams. That for me is the hardest thing to find. I think contact center roles and CX roles have got a lot more complicated or more challenging in terms of the skills that you need. And so finding the right person for me is the biggest challenge that I'm facing within my CX teams, and it's what I'm hearing within my network as well.
What about you guys? Is it similar for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sandrea's hit the nail on the head there. I don't think it's just within our industry, but I think following on from what Sandrea was saying, how customer service roles have developed, it's harder, perceived as, in inverted commas, and with all due respect, and that's where I think a lot of us started as entry-level positions, and asking ever so much more of people to be able to fulfill those roles. So within a very difficult employment backdrop, that is going to make things even more difficult to fill. Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I think at this point, sort of personally, I think it's just making sure as well that the staff we have that have had the time and the training and development stay. I think that's something that we're focusing on, and as in my role as well, just ensuring that we're doing what we can to make the role as interesting and as exciting and as enjoyable as we can, to make sure not only that they don't leave, but also to let other people know that, oh, this is a good place to be, a good place to work, and try and help with that kind of that hiring piece, and ensuring we're getting the right caliber of agents through the door.
And when you think about this then, from the recruitment side, are you doing anything different from how you used to do it in the past?
I mean, I think for me, what's different is I'm front loading a lot more of the assessment of skill. So I want to make sure that everybody who I end up sort of seeing their CV has the skills to do the role. So to save myself some time, because operationally we're all quite stretched, I find. So I want to make sure that the people who we're actually spending time with seeing can do the job. Also think I'm definitely using my teams more to recruit, so they know how challenging the role is, they know the complexity, they know the type of customer, and in general they will know somebody, or they will know someone who they think can do the job at the right level, and people tend to recommend strong folks, I find. So yeah, I'm doing a lot more recommendations.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because does that mean that you can, their focus is more likely to be what a great place to work it is and the nature of the role, and it means that you're kind of over that first hurdle that I think we come across, which is, oh wait, is this call center work? you know, because you can talk about the role is this, and we've got all of these benefits, and we've got this, you can have a great career, and you kind of have to like press gang, you know, it's like join the army, see the world. Oh wait, but you mean that I might be in a war zone? Well, yes, maybe. So that does that mean that you can, sorry, go on, you can focus
I was going
on
to say that they do the selling for us, you know, they get
Yes.
to see the real deal, or get told what the real deal is like before they come through the doors. Because I think sometimes with recruitment you can sell the fun, all of the fun bits, and the spangly nice stuff, and all the you know, contacts. Actually, I think one thing to drop in here is that contact center roles, we tend to do a lot of like gamification. We make things fun. We make sure that people enjoy being at work, because we know it's hard. We know it's hard to deal with 60, 70, 80 contacts a day, where you have to build rapport, make sure you get it right, because somebody's going to be checking your work. All of this stuff makes it quite challenging. So yeah, I absolutely agree that, you know, getting people to share the good and the challenging elements before you even have to speak to someone is really helpful. And it generally means they last a bit longer as well, because they're working with their friends.
You mentioned something there that is, we all know this vocabulary now around gamification, and that's something that is now seen as just you have to offer it. But what does it actually mean in reality? What is that, system based, or is it just the general support around people doing the job?
Yeah, indeed. I think there's lots of different definitions of it, but I think there's a general approach to a reward-based approach, whether that be learning or your daily role. I think when a few years ago tried a few pilots just in terms of more of internal communication and people engaging more with each other, peer-to-peer, from a hierarchical perspective as well, to share rewards, whether they be of a virtual nature but backed up with some, you know, good words, so solid kind of reinforcement of right behaviors. So reward doesn't have to be material through the gamification part. A lot of it is the sharing and creating a community based around outcomes that drive the customer and the business, the customer experience and the business forward. So, you know, I think that kind of underpins the general concept, but obviously the application and how it fits best into individual businesses is absolutely very different.
And you mentioned something earlier, Sandrea, around letting people know that their work is someone's assessing their work and is going to talk to them about that. And for some people, that kind of is something new. Now, Dan, from your world, when it comes to recruiting and taking new teams in, how best to position the element of quality?
So I'm in the fortunate position where I look after the quality and the training, so I can kind of combine both of the strengths of those. So something that we've done is just getting in there early with the explanation of what we're doing with quality assurance, what it looks like, what the end goal is, and I find that just from an early point, getting people behind the scenes and understanding the difference it makes, not just to the customer experience, but I'm a big fan of saying, look, this is how it could affect your day. You know, that you're speaking to customers on a daily basis. So let's look at that, because I do think it is important that people can have that understanding of how a call is structured, or how you can build rapport, how that affects their call day in and day out. So we just try and, from an early stage, get that quality piece there, and show how that affects everything else that they'll be doing as well. Because I think it's almost giving it a brand, like something that they can buy into and follow. So I think that helps. That's helped me so far in my experience.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the whole thread of this is around communicating and bringing people onto what the reason for them being there, and that it's so that we can all work together as a team and be better at what we do, starting from recruitment, understanding the job, how you can reward each other, and also then how to conduct the job and work in this kind of you're always progressing. There's always things that we can help you do better, and it's going to better the customer, better your work, you'll enjoy it more, but also that you're going to be learning skills, and we can help you from the quality side of things as well, develop skills that you can carry on wherever you go in your career. So it's less about, here are the rules that you're going to live under, here are the ways that we're going to tell you where you haven't done something right. It's more about, look, it's a supportive environment where we're going to help upskill you to A, enjoy the job, but B, be good wherever you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it, and trying to get that across to people that it's not just helping the business, it's not just some guy on a call telling you what to do, it's a development piece, and it's about how does it affect me as an advisor longer term, and how does it, you can obviously talk about the business, because I think you can tie it into those sort of larger business goals, because that's why it's there. But just get an understanding of the bigger picture, I think, for advisors is always helpful. I literally yesterday I said, it doesn't have to be a box ticking exercise, it's about building relationships with customers. It's all how you kind of frame it. So just giving that wider picture, I think helps a ton.
And we can't talk about the future and where we've been recently, and also kind of attracting and retaining talent in our industry, without talking about, where is our talent working? Are they in contact centers? Are they at home, or are they hybrid? When you look ahead to 2023, James, where do you see? Do you think our industry's got a handle of where best people can work, or do you see, has there been a move to bring people back, or what do you think?
I think the idea of where we work in society has changed a lot. I'm a big believer that a crisis can be the locomotive of innovation. And I was, before COVID, a big fan of remote working. 70% of our people in our UK contact centre were home workers, and everyone had the choice to do that.
You're being modest as well, aren't you? Because you won an award for home working.
The team won an award, yeah, indeed. It was I think, but there was a very conscious decision when we started off, probably 10 years ago, is that in the UK, wanting highly skilled multilingual people, you had to attract and retain them, and it was definitely at that point a USP. It enabled us to get any people, in terms of turnover, it's very low as a result, and you give people flexibility, and that's not something which has been a natural bedfellow with contact centres, and that preconception about it being factory and very impersonal and very inflexible, it completely turns that on its head. And I know when I used to speak about home working, when it wasn't pre-COVID, you get a few, but can you trust people? All this thing, how about productivity? And you can see, it's happened. Yes, you can trust people. If you don't trust people, there's a problem. And secondly, in terms of productivity of the boring stuff, it is there. It is there because people are getting a lot more back. They're getting time which is important to them, and I think we've realised that as a society, that time is a very precious asset. I myself was spending above 3 hours a day commuting from my home to a place of work, and now I've got that time back over a week, over a year. That's enormous. have I capitalized it as much as I should have done? Probably not. I need to use that a lot better in the new year. So for us to go back to that completely, I think that would be a step back. I can see why, I think everyone's there's a conventional wisdom now that hybrid working is the way forward, because there's two things. One, you need flexibility to attract and retain talent, but at the same point, your culture is that thrust, that booster to the success within the business, which I totally get. But again, coming back to that bit about the crisis being that locomotive of innovation, let's push that forward. If it really is going to be a struggle to attract and retain people, and it will be, it is, and it will continue to be for some time, then we have to continue to be flexible, cast the net further, and find innovative ways of recreating that culture. And technology allows us to do that, and your teams allow you to do that as well, if you give them the opportunity to be innovative. And I think if you look at all of the successes from COVID, that period, it was because you just had to let our teams come up with the solutions. Everyone wants to work together, but they couldn't, so they had to find those solutions. Let's try to recreate that to ensure moving forward we have something which is sustainable, great for well-being, from a mental well-being perspective as well, because that's something we really have to be mindful of. But it can also be great for people, the business, and the customer, if we're really kind of pushing the boundaries and being a little bit more innovative when it comes to those conventional ways of working. If not, I think that we've lost a battle there.
Sandrea, would you concur with that? What are you seeing? Do people, when they're considering working with you, ask that question quite early on, or what's your view?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I am recruiting fully remote because I do feel that it opens up more opportunities in terms of where people are working. So I'm not limited to London, because that's where our head office is. So I'm recruiting fully remote. But when I actually talk to other people in my network about their challenges, people are straight away going, how many days at home, rather than asking if they can work at home. If you attempt to get people into the office full time, if they do take the job, I can't imagine many people staying. The only people who really want to be in full time, if your home circumstances in terms of working aren't ideal, which you can get a little bit of in central London if people are in shared houses, etc. But for the vast majority, people are happier spending more time at home, because to James's point, you get so much time back. And in a time poor world, it's a hugely valuable commodity, really.
And Dan, are you, from a training point of view, that kind of making sure that the experience and the training, because it's not just necessarily about how we operate and how you do things, it's more that's someone's first exposure to the culture, isn't it? Is how that training is undertaken. How has the last year and looking forward changed?
I think,
or has it?
I'd say so previously, I think when I first started managing our training area, I think it was just post-COVID, so it was very much about building online trainings and having it all done through a call, and sort of seeing what kind of snazzy ways can we make it fun, how can we keep it engaging for everyone, and then what we found recently is, okay, well, should we look at bringing people in? Like, what's our hiring location limit, and should we try and get people in and bring them in for that first onboarding experience, which I think, sorry, my dogs, but essentially what we found is that, so far bringing in people to a place to try and really embed that culture, give them that experience of the office and the type of people that they'll be working with, kind of, what kind of company they'll be working for, has had a lot of benefits, and really does kind of just help embed that brand and that experience. And then moving from that to a stage where maybe they're still getting training and support, but it's through a Teams call or a Zoom call or something like that, where you still need those benefits of the polls and fun areas of the call, but it's not quite as time intense, and it's not quite as I guess in-person energy is different, because it's over a call. So at this point, we found a kind of a nice blend between the two, kind of similar to what James was saying earlier. But I think, it all depends on your hiring strategy, whether or not you want to do it fully remote or hybrid. And I think there's a place for all of it. I think, I couldn't say moving forward there's a best fit, because I think it depends on the business and what you're trying to achieve. But I definitely think it's possible to do all of the above.
I agree, and I think it was interesting you were saying earlier, James, around surely we must be past now concerns about productivity. And there was I read a report about a survey. I think it was Microsoft had surveyed 80,000. It was a large number, and productivity had gone up. However, management still had this, they coined that phrase productivity paranoia, where their perception was that productivity had gone down. Now, surely in our industry, where we have a KPI for everything, we should be at the tip of the spear of going, well, that's nonsense. It doesn't matter where our guys are. If we can see what they're up to every minute, so they're fine. Let's just focus on them.
It's funny, when we first started trying to measure and prove a business case for home and remote working many years ago now, we looked at handling time. I was obsessed with handling time at the time, which has always been one of my bugbears. But it does, if you can prove that the metrics are going in the right place, then it does help from a business case perspective. There wasn't a major reduction in the handling time. It was something about 4 seconds, which may be expected more naively. But the composition of that handling time changed significantly. Wrap-up time went down. Talk time went up. And for me, that was a big success, because we were engaging more during those minutes with our customers. Customer satisfaction went up a lot. And then I think you see the power of that turning into the power of the voice, turning into positive customer experience. And so I think it's not about, and it shouldn't be about productivity in its very boring and purist sense, but about just the value of the time, how it's being used, and how changing the environment can have a very positive impact on that. So that was really one of the major forces that pushed that business case in the right direction.
Nice. And one of the things that we spoke about on the panel, and it was an interesting one for me, because I think if you look at our industry as a whole, there was a time when, if you were involved in operations of the contact center, you weren't naturally invited to talk about CX. And now that there seems to be recognition that you absolutely should be talking to the people that are doing the job of talking to customers when it comes to devising your CX strategy. It wasn't always the case. I'd often go, what's going on in there? That looks interesting. We'll tell you about it when we're ready for you to deliver it. It was like, oh, okay, I might have a view on that. No, just do what we say. But when it comes to looking forward, and the extent to which CX strategy is, where does that sit on your list of priorities? Now, if memory serves me right, we came to you, Dan, for that one, so I'm expecting big things.
So it's still, the CX strategy is still very much a work in progress. with me. But I think what you just mentioned there, Martin, is ringing a lot of bells. You know, it's kind of historically it would make sense. You know, it's kind of a second idea to talk to CS maybe about that topic. But I think from my experience, it's kind of it goes. They're different things, CS and CX, but they're very much massive contributors to each other. So in terms of CX, I've always been very much voice of the customer orientated, and the benefits of that, how that can improve the business is massive. I think, you know, you've got a massive cohort of qualitative data there from your customers. You know, no two ways about it. So I think that features heavily in the CX strategy. But I think, if I remember correctly, when I answered originally, the CX strategy is very much, for me at this point, is, you know, just making sure you actually have one, and doing the work around that, and planning ahead, and making sure that you've got a good structure there to underpin it. And I think second to that as well is just make sure you put the work in building those relationships with the other stakeholders that might be outside of CST. So again, Martin, similar to what you mentioned before, having those relationships really will help build out and give some kind of meat to what you're trying to achieve. And also, I think just having a really good understanding of, you know, what does the customer want in this situation, making sure that you do the work in terms of understanding who your customers are, what they're looking for, what kind of experience they need, and there's lots of different ways to do that. You can bring in, as I mentioned before, CST team, listening to the calls, understanding what advisors are facing on a daily basis is super important. So yeah, so I think just again, just making sure that you're thorough with your work, and making sure you're including all of the key stakeholders to make sure you have a good understanding.
Yeah, I mean, and just to add to that, I say, because I think I'm going through my own strategy design at the moment, is I've taken an approach of the best CX is no CX. So, you know, eliminating contacts at the front. So what's going wrong? How do we strip those out? How do we stop them from happening? And then really, what are the processes that I can automate? What are the processes that I can simplify? And then the final piece of that puzzle is that voice of the community. But community for me is the customer and my internal community, which is my team. So the customer's voice is there, but also my teams are the ones who know why that process might be clunky, why it might be taking 20 hours to turn around that type of contact versus 10 hours to turn around the other. So both groups and both communities are informing my decision making as I create my strategy. And that's been hugely beneficial for me in terms of making a plan for what next year looks like, and then what my channel strategy looks like on top of it, because it isn't just about changing processes and stripping things out. It's actually which channels make most sense, which channels can I complete the whole journey in, because I don't want to have a customer start a journey somewhere and then they've got to leave at the end because they couldn't complete that final bit. So yeah, understanding all of these different layers of CX and how they fit together with the community's voice.
I love that. That's great. So did you say the best CX is no CX?
Yeah. I just mean nothing goes wrong. So in my case, you go onto the website, you order something fabulous, it arrives, it makes you feel extraordinary, which is what we're about, making women feel extraordinary in what they wear. And you go on and give us a great review. That's the ideal world. The best CX is no CX. How can I help with that? I need to make sure that our sizing guide is spot on, and that if you want to understand how a product is going to fit you, it's all there. The shipping information is really clear. So all of the things that aid that initial simple journey, I need to aid. So I need to make sure that if that is clunky, or I can see loads of people are spending time in the sizing guide, I might report back to our product team that they need to do something about it. So that is a place that I could help in terms of the best CX, no CX. When something does go wrong, how do I make that as simple and easy to resolve as possible? How can I ideally make it a self-solve? Because I do think that's the next best thing. But if you do have to speak to someone or send an email, that gets responded to as quickly as we can, and ideally with first time resolution. So yeah, that's how I see that. So yeah, the best CX is nothing goes wrong. It's seamless.
I love it.
And we play a part in that.
I love it. And James, does that, how does that resonate with in your world as well? And also the kind of the concept of bringing in everyone into that, the kind of devising and analyzing and delivering the CX strategy.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I agree, and I love that. Best CX is no CX. I think from my industry, there's very little chance of that happening, because there are so many things that can go wrong which are out of control. Acts of God, as we like to call them, which are. Yeah, I'm a very big believer in that. The symmetry between the colleague experience and the customer experience. The chances are, if it's an irritator for the customer, it's an irritator for a colleague, and that should be a starting point. It really is, and sitting with your teams, being there, hearing what is going on, and being able to feed that back quickly into an organisation, which is pretty big now. Our industry is extremely important and should underpin everything. I think when you're heading out there with a customer experience strategy, all of those elements need to be present, but also ensuring that in my industry the onboard experience is consistent with on the ground, and also in touch points from customer service teams. Difficult to do if you've got, like us, two brands, two airlines, Air France and KLM, with different customer experience teams. But what I think is really great and really helps us a lot from customer service is that we have a common language. We have those values, if you like, which are absolutely fundamental to underpinning the experience. And what I also like is the fact that we split those into how we want to make the customer feel, but how we like to feel ourselves as colleagues. And that comes back to this symmetry between the colleague experience and the customer experience, and how we should effectively interacting with those internal customers, ensure that we, and leaders as well, is that we interact with our colleagues just as we would like them to interact with the customer as well. We provide customer service to them. They should be able to recognize great customer service through the interactions that they have with the people that they're working with. And I think if that underpins everything that you do and interact, that you just in terms of your ethos, your philosophy, your communication strategy as well internally within your centres, then that really helps gain a lot of momentum in terms of what you deliver in terms of customer experience.
I love that. And we were at an expo where you get the opportunity to see the latest technology, and the vendors are there, and they're trying to be more and more creative about enticing you to their stands. The sort of freebies have got better. No longer is it just jelly beans. You can have a caricature drawn of yourself. You can have lots of other things, and it lends itself to the next sort of topic, which is around your budgets and whether there's investment in technology on your horizon. When you think about that, what for you is kind of pressing? What are the things that you are protecting in your budget? I can go to anyone for that one, because I think you're all itching to say something.
So for me, it's about investment in the tools that my team are using. So social is a significant part of our volume, and I'd love, and I have put into the budget to find a better community management tool that covers social as well as our standard tickets, gives me great analytics, as well as is super easy for my agents to use. I think for a long time, contact centres have operated over multiple systems, and I would love to be in a place where we've got tools that make it easier for people to do the job. We talked earlier about the complexity of the task that we're asking agents to do, but as well as writing this wonderful email where you've got everything right and you've got this great tone of voice and you've personalized and built this relationship, I need to update this, update that, and then put something there. Yeah, when we ask people to do that, I think we make the job unnecessarily challenging. So for me, it's investing in tooling to make the job a lot easier for my team.
Lovely.
Yeah, totally agree. And I mirror that completely. And I think obviously budgets are a lot tighter now. In aviation, extremely tight. They always are because of the margins, but even more so now. So for me, with having come from, when I first started, so many systems, so many legacy systems as well, not talking to one another, and then making, creating a lot of friction for customer and colleague alike. I'm really pleased to know that moving forward, that's the one thing, if you like, that's been ring fenced, is that simplification of the tools, trying to get everything into, one portal if possible, unifying that, having as much knowledge of the customer as possible available to the fingertips of our colleagues so they can personalize, engage more, and have a good experience themselves. Coming back to the same thing, trying to mirror that, to create that symmetry between the experiences, and tooling's very much at the heart of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think looking at how we can make the lives of the advisors that little bit simpler is a massive one, and following on from that as well, just making sure that we're still investing in the people themselves, just trying to see where we can keep that ongoing sort of chain of progress moving, and making sure people are getting as much as they can out of their role. So I think for next year it's about making sure that the people are getting invested in, and also we're looking at making their lives a little bit easier, and everyone's lives a little bit easier with our systems.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because there's going to be smarter people than me that will be able to reference this report better. But Contact Babel showed a correlation between the number of systems that our frontline team members use, and they cross-referenced it with attrition rates. And if it's there's a significant difference if it's more than 5. But if you think about it, even 5 feels like too many. I think we've all sat in and all been in contact centers where you watch someone go through like a version of Minority Report where they're having to go all over the place, and they've got hundreds of systems, each requiring a different login, where they're copying and pasting, and they've all developed their own shortcuts. The mental load that kind of even subconsciously puts on people just to do the job, you can see why it could be a factor in losing talent, which is kind of where we started. Now, you may have missed it in all of the adulation at the expo with people throwing roses onto the stage, but was there an area that we didn't discuss that you think was kind of in your mind about looking ahead?
I think we were too busy trying to get off stage, I think, as well, before the
it was hard,
hordes of fans came over and asked for autographs. That's showing my age as well. Sorry, it's selfies, isn't it? Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, we've talked about the core things. We've talked about people. We've talked about
Mm.
training, quality, budgets. If we go through our, I mean, maybe continuous improvement, how we're making sure that happens in our contact centres. I'm going through a process of building all of that into my Zendesk setup at the moment. But also I know in previous roles, it's something I've really worked to help agents understand. So why do I need to be perfectly accurate about what that contact was about? It's because that helps us to drive change going forward. Why do I need to put ideas and solutions forward? Is because actually you speak to thousands of people every month. Your voice really matters. So yeah, probably continuous improvement, or maybe the joy that is forecasting and planning that no one ever talks about, but is a fundamental to making any CX environment work. But definitely not a subject for me. So I don't know if we want to hand that to James or Dan.
I'm okay. Fine, thanks.
Forecasting and planning, and for the last budget exercise that we ran, and normally everyone's got a point of view, but I mean there was a silent room I think last time as well. We're not quite sure, but it was good. I mean, you could say anything and you could justify it. You know, it really is. It's such an unknown quantity at the moment. It really is. Yeah, no, I'm not going to touch that subject.
And a nightmare to recruit for, because it is. It's one of those. It's a really challenging one to get perfectly right.
Yeah.
The continuous improvement point is a really interesting one, because I remember working with a quality team actually who took great pride in tracking the improvements that they'd made or they'd identified and that had been followed through. And it was like 180. You know, the whole team had bought into this, and I think it's something that not just quality teams but contact center operational teams don't do enough of, that we have a role of honor of the things that we've done. You know, that the things that we say that we identified this and it's now in place, and it's improved our customers' journey, and it's improved our working conditions, and we've done 180 of them, and someone somewhere can attribute that to pounds and pence, and it moves us from being cost centers to kind of customer centers and the centers of continuous improvement. Because I think one thing that this type of panel and question makes you realize is we're extremely adaptive. You know, we have to continually evolve as an industry, and we're very good at it, but we don't often talk about it. We don't often say, look what we've done.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. I know that we have a centre in Amsterdam as great exponents of Lean Six Sigma. That's part that underpins a lot of what they do in terms of becoming leaner. But what I think that they did very well was actually show how that is being reinvested back into the business, back into colleague experience and customer experience as well, which I think it is very engaging, because there's always, just in terms of making things leaner and better and it's not, you know, if you're constantly doing that, there might be a little bit of people becoming exhausted with that if it's just seen as doing it for the sake of doing it. But if you can see those tangible results, as you say there, and how there's reinvestment as a result of efficiencies that might be being made, then that is something which I think is far more engaging and things that people can subscribe to a lot more easily.
Well, guys, I can't replicate the rounds of applause and the shouts of more and the tears of emotion that people had after listening to the three of you. But James, Dan, and Sandrea, thanks very much for coming back together and just sharing the wealth of your knowledge and your expertise. I've really enjoyed it, and have a lovely holiday period and a lovely new year.
Thank you. Same to you all.
Thanks a lot, Martin.